Hey folks, Jonathan here. I just wanted to show you something. North Carolina, when somebody leaves a vehicle alongside the road, sometimes it'll sit there for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks. Sometimes the windows gets knocked out, tires get stolen, stuff like that. But this vehicle here I picked up, it was actually abandoned. It was in a sort of a bad spot because it was close to the road, and they had actually put this sticker on it, the 31st of last month. So it's supposed to actually be towed after 24 hours of sitting, but you know, they usually give them the benefit of the doubt and let it sit. And so I picked it up a couple days ago. I think it's the 9th now, so about the 6th or 7th I think I picked it up. But that's really not what I was wanting to show you. This is a Honda four-wheel drive, CRV I think is what it is. But something I noticed when I was loading it up, I couldn't figure it out, and I let maybe somebody else can figure this one out. The axles are tied with a bandana on both sides, and I don't know why. Never seen anything like that before. But anyway, I just figured I'd show you, and maybe somebody's got an idea of why they done that. And you know, I don't think the bandanas would last long driving them, but I don't know. I thought I'd seen it all, but it seems like every time I think I've seen it all, I see more. Okay folks, we're back on the front end here. Just wanted to show you what I was doing to reinforce it. This is a piece of round tubing, schedule 40, and I actually sliced into it and sliced it around, and I'm going to weld it all in good. You know, it's good and heavy. It's actually at least as heavy as what this is. And I do have a gap in here, and I'll tell you one, I didn't want to grind any of my weld off for one thing. I remember when the lowrider started back in the 90s. I remember some boys, well, 90s and 2000s I guess, but I remember some guys that would come by my shop, and they had cut the back half of their truck off, and they redone it with, you know, 2x3 or 2x4 square tubing, or rectangle tubing. And I've seen a lot of spots where they would butt the stuff up close, weld it, and then grind it off. And then they would be wondering why they was getting cracks and breaks all over the place. And you know, if you can keep from grinding the welds off, you're better off. But if you have to grind them off, you know, you either need to V it out really good, or just leave, you know, somewhat of a gap there. Not a huge gap that you can't weld up, but you know, enough of a gap to get some good weld in. And I've never minded a gap. You know, they're not hard to fill. And once this is on there, you know, it's structurally, it's bringing this from being, you know, the 1.25 inches wide that it is to being about 3 inches wide. So you know, the strength of this is going to be way up there, so we won't have any problems. But I'm going to go ahead and get this welded in, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay folks, we've got it welded up here, and you can see my tire clearance is steered all the way this way, so we're still just fine on that. And I think that'll hold up good. We won't have any problems with it. And do the other side, and then that'll I think that'll be a lot stronger than what it was going to be without it anyway. And the one less thing we've got to worry about. So we'll keep at it and get this knocked out, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, we got her all finished up now, and going to move on to the next thing. I got to build the cross member for the front, and just get it ready to finish. We'll have to finish the fabrication on it and get it in the day of the build, but this is going to work out good. Picked up a steering gearbox too I want to show you. Okay, I've just got this sitting here just to get an idea of what we're doing. There's our old box, and this is going to be our new box. And what we've got is crossover steering, so it actually steers from this side, it pulls back and forth, and that's what our arm does there. This is off a 64 Chevy 2 Nova, non-power, and with where I'm going to sit the front end at, I think this box is actually going to have to come this way, but when the shock bracket's off, it'll work out fine, and we'll get it set up, make a plate, probably the day of the build, that we can bolt it to and weld it in there real good, weld the plate in there real good. And Now our steering angle is changing a lot. You know, it's going from a real steep angle to being pretty flat. But our problem is, if we put a steering gear or steering column in at the angle that lines up with that, we're definitely going to end up with a steering wheel down in the seat of the truck. So we've still got to run it pretty steep, and then maybe we'll run a tilt column where we can raise it up, and then we'll still have to run our U-joints up to it. And we're not too much worried about clearance issues because we're going to build the headers the day of the build. So, you know, once we get that done, we can actually come around that, and that won't be any, I don't think it'll be any issue whatsoever with the header clearance. And everything else is looking good. The only thing I've got to come up with now is this actually bolted in on the drag link that went across, and I've got to come up with an end off of a drag link that'll fit in. That way we can be able to weld it to our crossover steering link or drag link on our other front end, and you know, we can fabricate that up and weld it the day of the build. But as long as I've got something to put on it to be able to bolt it down. So it's coming right along. We'll get our U-joints together for here, and I've got a couple U-joints in there, and I've got plenty more on some of these junk cars out back. So we will we'll get everything together for that, and just as long as we've got the parts, I think, you know, we can fabricate and finish up, you know, that kind of stuff the day of the build. And you know, we'll mount that box the day of the build. But it actually fits on there pretty good. I think, you know, I think when we're said and done, it's going to work out really good. And still got to get some pedals situated here. I want to use the pedal assembly and pedals off of a non-power brake vehicle. We're not running power brakes. I don't know. We probably won't have a lot of room for the booster here. Plus, you got to worry about valve covers coming back and the booster running into it. And we're in, you know, such a hurry to build. We're probably going to run, I'm thinking maybe the 70 Chevy Impala down there has got a non-power brake setup. So we may run the pedal out of it, or the pedal, and the pedal bracket above it. And we can pick up a new master cylinder for a 70 Chevrolet, and that'll be our two-stage master cylinder. So, you know, if we lose our front, we'll still have our back, and, you know. So we'll do that and keep moving on. Alright, show you more. Okay folks, pulled the drum back off. I wanted to go ahead and figure these wheel cylinders out. I was having some trouble identifying this stuff, and finally did. These backing plates, and I'm assuming the drums themselves, are actually 1956 Ford, and I'm assuming well, the F1 Ford truck, so it would have been on a straight axle. So anyway, so they've been updated, and I think the difference is the drums are a little smaller, and not sure. I know the wheel cylinders are a lot cheaper, and actually, okay, we was going through Rock Auto to get the parts, and the wheel cylinders wasn't available for the 39 and 40 Ford, just the kits. And I looked on eBay, and they were pretty darn expensive. And then I got to looking, and I noticed there was 3 bolts holding the wheel cylinders on a 39 and 40, so I knew something was off. So I actually took the backing plate number off these and did some checking, and finally found out that they're 53 to 56 Ford, somewhere through there. So 56 Ford was the same. We went ahead and ordered the new wheel cylinders, and ordered 2 rubber hoses and for our brake lines, and then I went ahead and got new brake shoes coming too. And I think these are brand new, but it's kind of old, and that way, you know, if we don't have to worry about them. They wasn't very much, so just don't like taking chances on that. All the springs and, you know, all the hardware looks to be good, and the adjuster is actually all the way in, so that tells me that, you know, they just done the brakes, and these are new wheel cylinders, but you know, they sit too long, so we don't want to do that. And we'll check the grease and the bearings and make sure everything's good there, and get this finished up. And you know, everything on the front's done. I'm actually looking for a piece of 3x3 square tubing right now, 32 inches long. Checked with a couple friends. They're going to see what they've got. If they don't have any, I'm actually going to take 2 pieces of 3-inch channel and put them together and just make a tube myself. Alright folks, I didn't have any 3x3, so I actually called up two friends of mine, and both of them I thought may have it, and both of them had it, and both of them showed up here at the same time with some, but we've got a piece anyway. And 3/16 wall. This is going to actually go between the frame rails on the Jeep, and it'll actually fit right in, and we'll be able to weld it in good. But what we've got to do is actually build a perch off the front of it to the center of our leaf spring, and then we'll have to put holes in it for these to go through. And I'm not sure yet whether I'm going to run them like they are or if I'm going to flip them. I'll have to look and see, do a little bit of figuring on that, what's best to bolt them on, and make sure we can get them good and tight. And of course we're going to have to bring it out far enough. Our cross member will be back here, and we'll bring it out far enough to put 5 holes in it, one for each one of these, and then our U-bolts, and then one for our center bolt. And we'll actually measure this corner to corner and get that hole as close as we can. That way we don't have to worry about this thing moving around at all. And so that's the next thing to do. We'll get on it. Okay folks, I also wanted to show you, I've got the windshield glass in. This is from Bob's Auto Glass, or Classic Auto Glass, and as you can see it's a green tint. And what I like to check when I get a piece of glass cut, you can always tell by the corner finish, you know, the edges of it after they break it, whether they really ground it and, you know, took a little care in doing it. And because it needs to be really good and smooth. If there's any places on it that you know, are chipped or cracked, it's not going to last forever. I mean, you're liable to get a crack pretty quick and easy. So we've done a really good job on this glass, and we've got our rubber for it, so we're going to be putting that in the day of the build, and hopefully it'll go in good and won't be any problem. They do a real good job packing too. You don't have to worry about it getting broke. And we're getting more on our airbag collection too. We're up to 8 airbags now, and there's one of them, the Danny Walker airbag. He's going to be part of the destruction here. Alright, show you more. Okay, basically what we're going to do here is make a square. It extends back far enough to clear the bolts, and then that'll weld onto the cross member. So we'll go ahead and make it out of this quarter plate. This is used stuff. I've actually got a brand new sheet, but I don't like the way it cuts. It's that new China steel, and when you go to cut it, you run into places in it that I just don't like. I don't trust it, so I'd rather use some old steel that I know's better stuff. And then we're going to make 2 side brackets to help support that plate. So we'll go ahead and get on that now, and we'll get our square cut out, and then I'll get our 5 holes drilled, which will be the 2 for this and the 1 for the center. Okay, now we got our first hole drilled. That was 730 thousandths, and it looks like the corners are rounded some, so it may have been a 3/4, 750 thousandths before, but I measured 730, so that's what we drilled it that way. It would be good and tight on there. And now we're going to do other holes. I'm going to try to look and see where them U-bolts was originally spaced at, because I don't want to get them too wide apart, because it'll actually flatten the U-bolt, too far out. So I'm going to try to figure out where it was, do my holes. I can always cut this back, shorten, make it smaller. That's not a big deal. Just didn't want to get it too small to start with. But we'll see if we can get that figured out here real quick, and then we can get them 4 holes drilled. Okay folks, I had to run off to a wreck, and 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and we've already got drunk drivers rolling in their cars, so it's going to be a heck of a weekend. But just wanted to show you where I was at. I got the holes drilled. This is kind of a weird setup. This clamp has got the piece here that goes on the bottom of the spring, and I want to use them on the bottom, so this is how I want to do them. But of course the holes are right for the bolts, but once it gets so far, the way these are, I guess they're forged, the way they're made, they're just not going down in they're wide. It's wide enough, but the corners can't be rounded like they are. So I'm going to machine them out just a little bit to where this sits all the way down in, you know, against this plate, and then these will bolt directly right up on the bottom, and we'll get that good and tight. This will weld into our 3-inch tubing, and then we'll have 2 brackets, one on each side of this, that come up to the tubing to help support it, you know, to keep it from twisting this way. But I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, and we'll get back on this thing tomorrow and hopefully get this front end, everything finished up on it. So, all right, bye.